Hello Seamus, this is your IS300 to IS200 plug and play harness. It is the adapted harness. Obviously we've used the original IS300 harness for you there. Obviously everything plugs in. This is your ECU. You've got your little patch harness there because obviously the ECU plugs are different to the IS200. Everything in here plugs in. That's all been changed around to be correct. And obviously using the J160 manual gearbox. So we've got the actual gearbox harness coming down here. So you see there's your reverse plug. There's your reverse plug. There's your speed sensor plug for the J160. All right. So nice and simple. Obviously it comes out the ECU box here. Now obviously I've got the engine here, so just bear with me. But yeah, so it comes out there, goes into the top there. You've got a section that goes underneath here, which bolts down there. That's obviously where all your injectors go. Your cam sensor goes. You've got your purge valve over there, or evap valve over there. You've got your ACIS over here underneath with this little canister. Then you've got the section that goes over the top there, which is where your coils come out, and you've got your 3 coils along there. You've got oil control valve, and that comes out with these 2 front injectors over here. And then coming around the front here, you've obviously got this going along here to your drive-by-wire motor and clutch for your drive-by-wire throttle. Coming along the back here, you've got your pedal position sensor, and you've got your lambda sensor for bank 2 sensor 1. Coming down the front here, you obviously got the breakout for your crank sensor, which is this one over here. You've got your alternator plug over there. You've got your thick cable for your alternator, which bolts on over there. And then you've got your lambda sensors for your bank 1 sensor 1 and bank 2 sensor 1. Sorry, bank 2 sensor 2. Okay. Now we have wired up the other sensor. So in your IS200, you've got the sensor on the inside that goes along the exhaust over there. So just remember, you do have to fit that one in, or else you will get an error code for that. So it's basically that one over there that comes out and goes into the tunnel there. So make sure you put that one in. Coming out the grommet, we've got your resistors, obviously, to remove the codes for the gearbox, as well as your ATEMU device or automatic transmission emulator. Okay, that's all hardwired in there for you. Just a little note, obviously the IS200 ECU box doesn't fit the IS300 ECU. If you can get your hands on an IS200 ECU box, that'll fit straight in. Otherwise, this little lip around the side here, you can just grind that off, and then that will actually push us all the way down. So there's your 2 options for you if you want to fit it in. So that's all of that. Oh, and then the last one is obviously your mass airflow. So it comes out here at the bottom, and it goes into your intake pipe over there. So same type of MAF like this. This is the one that you need for the IS300. Okay, so hopefully you got that with your engine. Right, so what we're going to be testing is quite a few things. So number 1, obviously we removed the immobilizer, so we'll test that. So you'll see at the moment we've got a flashing security light. As soon as you put the key in, that'll go out. We're going to check the ambient temperature, or the outside temperature. So that's going to be on the inside where your climate controls are. We're going to check the charge lights and the oil pressure lights. Just make sure they come up on the dash, and obviously when we start it up, they'll go away. So we know that they're working fine. We're going to test the reverse by bridging the reversed circuit. That'll make the beep go on. We're going to test the speedo by feeding a signal into the speed sensor plug, and that'll make the dash speedo work. We're going to obviously have our OBD2 machine plugged in here. So again, this is literally just plugged into your standard OBD2 port. This is the one that's obviously under the dash, hidden away. Obviously I've got no dash in here, so it's all hanging. Okay, then we're going to test the fuel pump relay via the OBD2 machine, just to show that's working. And then we'll test the AC clutch as well via the OBD2 machine, and you'll hear the relay in here click. So obviously that all works as it should. So effectively, as long as you plumb everything up correctly, that'll be fine. Then obviously when we start the engine, we're going to test the drive-by-wire. So that's just basically pulling the accelerator, nice and simple. The starter circuit will be tested obviously as we crank it. We're going to test the ACIS, or acoustic control induction system. So that's basically this little valve over here. So it rests in this position over here, and as soon as I'll test it with the OBD2 machine, you're going to see it's going to pull closed. Okay, and that's controlled by that little canister and everything underneath there. So I've got a video on ACIS and how it works, but effectively it just halves the intake runner length, and that's what a little valve does. It opens valves and closes valves in there. Okay. We're going to test the oil control valve. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the OBD2 machine. We're going to test it. It's going to put the VVT into, like, you know, max advance and so on and so forth. So the engine's actually going to make a horrible noise, probably die, but it means that it is actually working. Then I'm going to run around and I'm going to unplug all the injectors one by one, so we can see each actual cylinder is firing, but you'll hear it's pretty smooth when it runs. Obviously tacho is then going to come up on the dash here, so we can be able to see that. And coolant temp as well, so we'll be able to see the coolant temp there. Obviously I've been testing it, so as soon as I put the ignition on, you're actually going to see the coolant temp because it is actually up to temperature now. Okay, so right, let's get to it. So first thing we want to do is we want to test the immobilizer. So on a Lexus and a Toyota, the immobilizer is obviously indicated by the flashing LED over there. Now, obviously we've just removed the immobilizer, but obviously we keep it so that it looks like you have an immobilizer. So you take the key out, the security light flashes. So if anybody walks past, they think you still have an immobilizer. Now then, I'm not even going to turn the key. All I'm going to do is literally put it in, okay? And what that does is there's an actual key sense switch wire in there that goes to the ECU. It tells the ECU to turn on the relay, which then reads the key. So you'll see I'm not going to turn it to on because nothing else will come on. But as soon as I insert the key, and you'll see now the security light has gone out. Okay, so your immobilizer is obviously deactivated. And as soon as I turn the ignition on, you've got check engine light, you've got battery light, you've got oil light, okay? Now the IS300 did have a VSC system, not a TRC system. So I've removed all the TRC bulbs in here, which I'm probably gonna do anyway, but just make sure you do remove those bulbs, okay? Then coming along to here, we're just gonna check our ambient temp. And as you can see there, 19 degrees, so that's absolutely fine. So we know that's working 100%. Just going to turn this back around here so we can see it. Okay, so we've done immobilizer removal and the ambient temperature. We've obviously seen that we've got our charge light or alternator light and our oil pressure light. So next up now, we're just going to bridge this reverse. So this is exactly what your gearbox does. So if you just bear with me. Right, so you see, I've just bridged it like that. And we've got our annoying reverse beeps going on there. So I'm just going to remove that, get rid of that. Right, so next up we're going to do speedo. So effectively I've got a little device here that's going to output a signal from there. So what I normally do is to make sure the system is working 100% is this requires power and ground. So this is a Hall effect sensor, so you've got 12 volts and you've got ground, and we give the signal out. So I know 100% that this plug, it has all the signals that it requires to work. So just bear with me a second while I put it into test mode. Fantastic. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is pin number 3, the yellow one, which goes to the signal. And you see there now our speedo shot up. So we've got our 3 wires plugged in there. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'll quickly disconnect that, and as I disconnect that, well, that one's done. Right, okay, so we're happy with that. Now we're going to go over to our OBD2 machine. So these take ages to read, so I've already done it, but I'm going to quickly go into function. I'm going to go into system select, and you can see there IS300. So it is picking up that it's an IS300. All right. So we're going to go into there, and then we're going to be able to see all the live data like we would normally. So we'll just go into data list, and obviously we'll see there all the data start to appear there. So there you go, 78 degrees, 31 degrees intake air temp, 14% throttle. And as you can see, our coolant temp is working on there. So that's all perfect. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test the fuel pump. So I'm just going to go into active test. Now it says fuel pump, relay, fuel pump. I've got a video on how Lexus and Toyota fuel systems work. So if you are interested, go watch that. That explains why you have 2 different sections there. We're only interested in the fuel pump. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, all right, I'm going to press that button to turn on the pump, and you can hear the relay clicking. And more importantly, you can hear the fuel pump working. Okay, so obviously fuel pump's controlled by the ECU. Do watch the video about the fuel systems because it explains things like obviously they don't prime. So when you get it and you put the key in, it's not going to prime the pump. So just be aware of that. That is perfectly normal. That's absolutely fine. Right, so next up we're going to do AC clutch. So again, we're going to go into active test. We're going to go AC magnetic clutch relay. Enter. And again, what we're looking for is obviously the clutch. Okay, you're actually going to hear, I've got it plugged in on the engine now. I'm just going to bring it a bit closer, but there's your AC relays. Okay, and you can see, you might be able to see over there. Let me just see if I can. Okay, So I'm happy with that. The actual magnetic clutch on the front of the aircon pump, that's working, and the relay inside the car. So as long as everything's plumbed up and all your pressure sensors are there and working, AC will work just fine. Okay, so all that's left now is we're going to fire her up. We're going to test the drive-by-wire. Starter circuit will obviously be the fact that it starts up. It's nice and simple. We'll then go to the machine and we'll test the ACIS and we'll test the oil control valve. So the ACIS, what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate it on there. And then effectively what we're going to do is we're going to see this little valve. So this is the resting position, okay? And as I do that, what's going to happen is this valve is just going to turn like that, okay? So that's effectively how we're going to do it. So that's, I'm going to show you that's the case. So I'm going to start her up now. I'm going to put my earmuffs on quickly because it's going to be loud. Okay, so I'll point to everything as we go along, but I will keep talking because usually you can hear me. So again, as it's plug and play, you just turn the key. So 3, 2, 1. Okay. So drive-by-wire test. Okay, that works. Starter works. ACIS. So you can see now that it's in that position. I'm going to go to active test. Going to go to intake control, vacuum solenoid valve. Turn it on. As you can see, that's now in the down position. Okay, now we're going to test the oil control valve for the VVT-i. And that's going to clean up here. That's effectively what it's going to do. We're going to enter that. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you heard the motor make a really different engine note as we tested that. So now we're going to test all the injectors and coils by taking them off one by one. So we're going to start with number 6. Number 5. Number 4 underneath there. Then we've got number 3 over there. Let me go right from there. Okay, then we've got number 2 over there. Then we've got number 1. Alright, so we're going to check the tacho out, and there you go. So that's all working as it should, and coolant temp is obviously working as it should. Okay, I'm going to cut that off quickly. Alright, fantastic. Okay, so as you probably noticed when I was doing the injectors, you'll actually see that they are color coded. So 1 is grey, 2 is brown, 3 is grey, 4 is brown, 5 is grey, 6 is brown. So that's a nice easy way to tell which injector goes in where. You should never have 2 colors of the same next to each other. Okay, and the one thing I don't think I actually went through was obviously all the wiring underneath here. So you've got your earth straps over there, one belongs there. We just put them into one place, but basically one belongs there and the other one belongs there. You've got your knock sensors there. I don't know if you can see, I'm trying to get pointed to my shadow. So you've got a knock sensor there, and you've got a knock sensor at the back here. You've got your wire that comes down to your starter motor over there. You've got your ACIS underneath there. Now, this is important. This is obviously your power steering pressure sensor. So the IS300 actually had a pressure sensor on the power steering lines. So try and see if you can get the IS300 power steering lines. If not, if you want to just get rid of the code, this is actually an IS200 map sensor basically from your intake. Yank it out, plug it in, tuck it away. It won't give you a code for that. There's your aircon pump down there, so that plugs straight into there. And then you've got your other hard line for your alternator, which comes out and goes directly into there. Okay, so that's all the underside that you see underneath there. Rest is all straightforward, it's all on top here and goes along there like that. Okay, so I'm happy, she runs really nice and smooth, all the cylinders are firing as they should, so that's all good. So the only thing left on your side is obviously drop the motor in, really straightforward. Once you've dropped it in, You're going to obviously plug everything into your ECU, stuck it in here. You're going to obviously bolt down your igniter, which lives on the top of the turret here. These little resistors get incredibly hot. So what you need to do is either sort of mount them down the side here or make a little plate on the top and just mount them on there. We're giving you plenty of room. It's about 1/2 meter, so you can tuck them down the side there. You can put them over there, whatever you want to do. You're going to have your main alternator, which is going to go and bolt in over here. Now from your battery, you've got 2 positives. So you can use your existing 1G starter, which is a short one that bolts onto there. And then underneath that one, you'll actually see there's another cable, and that goes down from there and it goes into the bottom of this fuse box there. Okay, so those are your 2 powers that you've got. You've got your earth, which is going to go on your battery. Again, you can use a standard one, but basically goes from there, underneath, bolts to the chassis, goes down the side, and then bolts to the block. Okay, and once you've done that as well, there's like little plates on this side over here. Obviously, I've moved them off my engine, don't need them. But anyway, so there's an earth strap that goes from there, and then you can bolt it onto this little sort of mounting point at the front there. So those will be the only earths that you need. Make sure they're nice and clean. If you're going to be pulling everything out, what I normally advise is take the battery out, go underneath. As you can imagine, water and stuff just sits in there. Clean it all out. Take the earth out, give it a good clean with maybe some emery cloth or whatever. Put it all back in. Make sure you're happy with that. Toyota's earthing. Just put as many earths as you can. But you should be good with just the 2 that you've got over there. All right. And yeah, just to recap, this is obviously your Atomy device at the moment. We've got it on mode 1. There is 5 modes. We find 1 works the best so far. But obviously you can experiment with the 5 of them if you want. And all it does is change the relationship between effectively the engine RPM and the input speed sensor that would normally be on the automatic gearbox. Obviously all of those signals are coming from here now. Okay, so that's about it really. Hopefully that's everything that you need to know. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Everything is relatively straightforward. Plug in. You've got your OBD2 diagnostics if you want. Or what you can do as well, if you do want, is if you turn the ignition on. Now, depending on which exact year 2001 you have, there's another way to read diagnostic codes, which is really nice and simple. If you've got a pre-2001, you'll have this little sort of diagnostic box here at the front. Okay. If you don't have that and you've got a post-2001, you've got the OBD2 diagnostic ports. Both have the OBD2 diagnostic ports, but effectively what you can do is you can basically take a paper clip and you can bridge pin 4 and 13 of that one over there. What I'm going to do is, because I have this vehicle and it's easier to get in there while I've got that plugged in, I'm just going to bridge it here. If you do have this, you're looking for E1 and TC. That's basically what you're looking for. It is all labeled in there, but just so you can see what it is, you've got very few wires actually in here. So this is E1. So you'll actually see in this little section here, you've only got 1, 2, 3 anyway, and you've got a couple over there. And if I have a look here, bottom row there's plus B1. Oh, sorry, that's my bad. That is E1. Do apologize, it's this row of 9 over here. And then looking down at the bottom there, TC is the middle one of this row over here. So I'm going to move over to the dash now to show you basically what happens. But effectively, as soon as I bridge that, which I'm going to do now, okay, alrighty. So when you bridge basically the TE1 or TC and E1, it puts in a diagnostic mode. Okay, so like the 3UZ and the IS300, unfortunately the check engine light doesn't flash, so I do apologize about that. But basically what this does is puts in a diagnostic mode, so there is something that you can do nice with this, and that is you can check your timing. So if you're ever worried that your timing belt is out of sync or whatever, you bridge those 2 terminals, and effectively what you're going to do then is looking down at your engine over here, you're going to see you've got timing marks on the crank there. Now there are 2 timing marks on the pulley, so make sure you got the right one. But you can use a timing light on coil 1, which is this wire over here, and you can check your timing. So if you bridge those 2, it'll lock it at 10 degrees. So I'm just going to pull that out now. Okay, so that's another little useful tip if you've got there. But like I said, you do have OBD2 diagnostics over here, so you can get all your information from one of the Bluetooth readers over there. Okay, so hopefully that's all nice and straightforward and simple. It shouldn't be too hard to fit in once you've got it all in. Plug it all in, away you go, and yeah, so she'll turn on the first turn of the key and you'll be ready to go. All right, Seamus, but thanks for watching. And for anybody else, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. A comment down below, we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. And like I said, if you have one of these and you have any sort of questions and queries about something or other, feel free. We'll try and make videos where we can to explain things in greater detail. please feel free to go back and look over other stuff. So like I mentioned about how the fuel systems work, you can go back and look over that as well, etc. I've done loads of videos. Sorry, I can't remember all of them at the same time, but yeah. So I've got videos on how the fuel systems work. I've also got a video on maps, how sensitive they are and how they work. So do go ahead and watch that as well. That'll give you a lot of useful information, because a lot of times we get people phoning us up and saying the engine won't start, and we find out they haven't actually plugged the MAF in, or they plugged the MAF in, they've just got it in loose air, which is even worse than not plugging it in, because technically it's measuring no air, so it's going to give no fuel. So yeah, so lots of useful videos. Do go ahead, watch it, and yeah, if you've got anything else, just let us know in the comments. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.